Yeah, last.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It is October 14th, 2025. Welcome to our Board of County Commissioners 9 o'clock board briefing session. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. The Mariners won again.
Keep it going.
That was good. We've got a busy morning. We've got a couple executive session and closed session, so hopefully we can get those in this morning. So we will go ahead and get started with Kevin Ritchie. Share.
Good morning. I'll start you out with something really quick. So GISA Credit Union had some grant opportunities. The Local Heroes Program is what it's called. So it's for grant opportunities for local heroes right there in the name. So we were awarded $14,100. The intent or the application was for 3 flight helmets for the air unit. These helmets are kind of an upgrade over what we have. I think our current ones are expired, 3 to 5 years over expiration. These include base helmet, communication systems, and night vision goggle mounts. So they're just kind of upgraded helmets for search and rescue missions and patrol functions and that kind of stuff. So the ask is that we, the board allows us to accept the $14,100, and based on, I just got an update based on some estimates, we may actually be able to get 4 of them. So it's interesting.
Yes. Great.
All right.
Awesome.
That's all I have.
Very good.
Awesome.
Thank
Short
you.
and sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. It's gonna take us to Ashley.
This is just a great day. We're all just here to ask that you will allow us to accept money with no strings attached. Yay!
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, always a good day when I'm here. So I have 2 that I would like the board to give us permission to accept. One is for child support enforcement. Total amount is about $147,000. I know that the clerks receive a chunk of that as well. I had thought that maybe we could line this up so you could hear from all of us that receive this funding today, but I guess I'm first. We're in a 6-year contract with them that doesn't expire until the end of next year. So you don't need to sign anything. We just need the approval to accept these funding from DSHS. And it's all done through math as far as how much time is spent doing these types of hearings. They just each year tell us how much we receive. And then the second is for interpreter reimbursement, and that's about $31,000. That we'll run through that, but it is nice that the state provides some reimbursement for that required expense. And as long as the board is okay with it, both of those will be on the consent agenda next week.
Yeah.
I'll
Very
keep trying to find state funding to come and reimburse these required expenses.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Okay.
Matt is on his way over.
That's on his phone.
Kyle's on.
I know.
Export. Sorry, Matt.
Any miscellaneous before Matt gets here? Okay, so you should, yeah. See if there's any miscellaneous.
I'm making a couple minor edits that were suggested to me about that letter. I should have that done by noon and distributed.
Okay, and ready for. Matt, I'm gonna do the letter on finding. I'm gonna explain the letter.
It's wrapped. Missed.
Yes, so it's just to the department that.
That's-
Timing.
But fair job.
Oh, Matt, go ahead and come on up. We're just doing miscellaneous while we're waiting for you.
Okay.
So you know. Also, that.
Okay.
You wanna make sure he gets a copy of the letter as well. Okay, thank you.
Or after we pass it.
Matt's your part, the other Matt.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. In the interest of trying to be expeditious, we're again bundling some items. Similar to the establishments previously, we've done two groups of those. These are again public hearing items. Always aware of that, so trying to keep it to 4 feels like a good number. But these traffic code revisions, the first one is for Betts Road, and this is out, thank you, Ron, out by Cheney. You can see the red line there. That was previously a gravel road that we converted into a light bit chip seal road. But chip seal, I think you know, is not structurally what asphalt is. So we've heard from a neighbor that they're seeing a lot of heavy truck traffic on this road. So we're going to post it no trucks. There's not a compelling reason for trucks to be on that. If they just stay on Cheney Spokane Road, they come into town at a signal and it's all paved and structurally adequate to support the trucks. So just trying to keep the big trucks off this. It is a great cut through for people because it puts them right onto Betts that continues and goes right into Eastern's campus. Have a lot of traffic. We were really happy to convert this one into a oiled road. Obviously not being gravel, less maintenance, and just a better road for people, better level of service. So that's that one. Any questions regarding that? Next one is. Okay, it's a revision to a speed limit. This is the Palouse Highway. Slide. So if you're familiar with Palouse Highway, it kind of runs south of town. You can see the red dot there is the portion we're talking about on the map. It's in the community of Valley Ford. And the several things driving this conversation, the community has asked for it. In particular, the intersection of Madison and Palouse Highway. We had a fatality this year out there, and we've had several serious accidents. I think people just not knowing, and also combined with the speed of the road. Palouse Highway is currently 55 miles per hour. So when you have accidents, you have really bad accidents. And also there's a lot of other things. I mean, if you've been out there, that community is fairly urban in terms of density. It's close to the road. We have a fire station there. All of those taken together are wanting us to convert that to a 45-mile-an-hour road just to slow things down, just to make people aware also that you're entering a community. There's signage now that alludes to that, but I think stepping the speed limit down is another good step, but just for a short distance. Valley Ford is just a small portion of it, but we feel that's an important safety step to mitigate any potential future wrecks. And happy to answer any questions on that. And the community is asking for that one, so we don't anticipate a lot of pushback at public hearing. We are slowing people down and not like slow down, but we think it's important. Okay.
Guys, approximately how long is that stretch there?
I would have to look. It's I'm gonna say less than half.
Oh,
Probably.
okay.
It's a very short section that you're actually in Valley Ford proper.
Okay.
But let's see if the agenda said how long it was.
No, it was 7.21.
What's that?
7.21.
There you go.
Oh, up
It's
top,
very
yeah.
short section.
There. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. The next one is, yes, Hayford and Melville Road. Again, we're out on the West Plains. You can see the red lines there. Those are the roads that we're looking at changing from 45 miles an hour currently to 35 miles per hour. And there's a number of reasons. We're putting our park out there. And that was really the impetus for this conversation, is we'd like to slow people down next to that park. But you can tell from the aerial on the right side, this is an urbanizing area. 45 miles an hour isn't feeling necessarily appropriate anymore on those roads. It's very rural on one side, on the west side of Hayford and on the south side of Melville. But on the east and the north sides respectively, it's very urban. We're getting a lot more approaches, a lot more traffic. Slowing people down feels appropriate. We also had the aerospace company out there reaching out, concerned about it, wanting the speed reduced. They have a lot of employees. They've grown their operations there significantly, and they have concerns about the traffic and the speed. So all those taken together, we just think it's time. This happens, as you might imagine. We get rural areas becoming urban and just need to revisit speed limits as appropriate. Happy to answer any questions on that one. Okay. All right. Fourth and final. This one is a little more interesting. This one is Daymount Spokane Road at the intersection with Bruce Road. And I believe you've heard from people in the past, it was really from 2019 to 2023, we had a lot of complaints regarding this intersection, both safety and the delay. Primarily on Bruce northbound, you were stopped currently, and the primary movement's to take a left and go westbound, but it just really would stack up on Bruce at certain times of the year. And then obviously during Green Bluff times, October in particular, this intersection just gets out of hand. The traffic backs up significantly, very long delays. We've done this other places. The one that jumps right to the Apple Way out at State Line, we've converted that to an all-way stop. And frankly, it just performs better and it's far safer. Both, which seems odd when you're stopping people, that would become a better operating intersection, but it works. And that's what we're proposing here, is to make it an all-way stop. Obviously, the people that are just move through the intersection on Daymount Spokane aren't going to be thrilled to be stopped, but it will increase capacity and it will be much safer. We have not a huge accident history here, but it's very, people take bad gaps, they get impatient, or they don't know that the oncoming traffic doesn't stop, and the accidents we've had are pretty bad. So this one we feel is worth doing. I do anticipate some public input on this one. I think the people that are needing to stop that didn't have to stop before will show up and will not be happy about it. But I think the combination of the two, it's definitely time. And I think operationally, after they drive and live with it for a while, they'll find that it operates really well. They won't have big delays. And when they're northbound going to westbound, when they're north taking a left, or also when they're eastbound going south, I think they'll find that they're much happier with the way the intersection operates. When we do this, if the board supports that recommendation to make this change, we're going to do a lot of signage. Big concern when you do something like this is people that have driven it forever won't recognize the change. So we'll put in oversized stop signs, we'll have reflective tape on them, we'll have multiple advanced warning signs, probably 2 of them permanently installed, and just try and make sure everybody's aware of the change. Make it safe, because that's the concern, is right when you do that transition, people that have lived there or moved away and been gone forever come back and they drive it like they always drove it, and just don't want to have any accidents from that. So that's all of them. Are there any questions on that Daymount or any of the other ones? All right, appreciate your time. You this afternoon.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're here to talk to you today about some of our affordable housing portfolio. So Brittany Reed, as our affordable housing program manager, is going to make the presentation.
Yeah, hello, great for seeing us this morning. I quickly will give you a little bit of context. Over the past year or so, I have approved a few loan forgiveness or loan conversion, and we've kind of been doing a lot of cleanup on our side of things. And this is kind of another piece of that, in trying to preserve our existing affordable housing units moving forward, as that is kind of the most cost-effective way to keep affordable housing strong in our county. And so for this is the Catherine Johnson Court project. So this is currently Catholic Charities, used to be owned by Spokane Housing Ventures. As you can see up on the presentation, the project was built in 1996, needs a lot of reinvestment. Hasn't had a lot done to it since then. So we're kind of looking at this forgiveness leading into the rehab and the preservation of these units, as well as another project, which I'll get to later. So as I mentioned, previously owned by SHV, currently operated by Catholic Charities. 35 of 36 units are home restricted. So this is a home loan that they currently have with us. I'll get to the details of all the exact numbers later. But you can see the financing kind of broken down here. All 100 units are 60% AMI and below in this project. I can speak to exactly what units in the Ellis Narrow project I'll get to later. But this is specifically just for Catherine Johnson Court, as that is the only one that we have with them that we're looking to forgive right now. So if you go to the next slide, look at kind of a breakdown of the current loan terms. So as I mentioned, home, original loan is 700,000, 2007, 3% interest. They've made all their payments until July 1st in anticipation of this forgiveness. Then we kind of pause those payments. So they've made timely payments up until now. You'll see that the maturity date is January 1 of 2025 as well. If you want to go to the next slide, we can look at exactly how much they've paid. You'll kind of see a breakdown, principal paid, interest paid, and that remaining balance of 507 or just over 507 at the top. As I mentioned, 210 of 216 payments have been made. So they've been timely. We haven't had any issues with this. They've paid a lot down. So we're kind of just looking to help them out here at the end of that maturity of the loan. So if you want to go to the next slide. This is kind of what we're looking at, reasons to support and why it's in the best interest of the county. Overall, Catholic Charities needs to improve their debt coverage ratio to be able to reinvest. So they're looking at approximately 6.2 million reinvesting into CJ Court and another 11.2 million into El Estero, which is that other project that is funded by the city of Spokane. Sorry, I'm Spokane. They also forgave that loan on El Estero, just for context, of about $607,000, I believe. Maybe it was, yeah, 608, sorry. And so this is kind of a partnership here of both of us being able to forgive these loans so that they can reinvest that money and be able to obtain the financing to do such and be able to keep, there's a mistype there. It's 158 units, not 58 units. So a little bit better than that. If we can keep those affordable for at least another 40 years, but we're looking at potentially another 40 years on top of that. So this is critical units that just need to be reinvested in, and by forgiving this loan that they can do that. So we're looking at retaining the housing stock, as I mentioned, and preserving the units that exist. As y'all know, there's a big need for housing, and this is the most effective way to keep some units currently in the system. So this is kind of the proposal. There's also looking at, they have a subsidy coming in for 5 veterans to be able to come into the CJ Court property as well with this reinvestment. So that's something else to know. And I think that's kind of the gist of it. If you have any more questions, there's obviously more information, but this is home funding, as I said, that we're forgiving, not like local dollars or anything like that. And they've been making timely payments. So I just wanted to make sure about that as well.
I think one thing to point out, in addition to what Brittany said, is as we went out into the community for our 5-year consolidated plan, when it came to affordable housing, one of the really prominent things that we heard from the community was let's maintain and preserve our existing affordable housing stock so that we don't risk losing it to private market, where folks may say we can no longer afford to be able to do this affordable housing. That's kind of the situation that we're running into with this project at Catherine Johnson Court and some other ones where they just don't have the replacement reserves because they're the clients that they're serving that they can't reinvest back into their property. So they need to go out and do some financing on that, which means the banks are looking at their balance of debt owed. And so this is an opportunity for us to, it's a significant amount of money, but we can build back another 2 or 3 units for how much we're talking about in a situation like this if we were to build new. So preserve what we currently have and make sure that it maintains good quality into the future for folks.
What assurances do we have that they're actually going to be reinvesting into the properties and stuff? And so then with regard to the timing of forgiveness, does that happen prior to them investing, or is it happen at the same time, or how's that structured?
Yeah, great question. I've worked with legal to draft a document specific for this. So in that resolution that you'll see attached to this item and that will come to legislative is basically a clause that says that this forgiveness only stands if they maintain the debt to service ratio that they can then reinvest within 6 years. So we gave them that timeline of 6 years that needs to happen. Otherwise, this forgiveness is off the table.
So they reach the end of 6 years they haven't reinvested, then the loan reinstates then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a couple quick overviews on tracking. Brittany, you said the CJ Court has 100 units.
CJ Court is 36, so we have 35
36.
restricted. The
Okay.
158 units that I mentioned is a combined total between El Estero and CJ Court.
Okay, so
So-
El Estero has the other 108. Okay, so 36, and right now, these are all funded through home dollars, which are federal dollars, right?
Correct.
And I'm presuming home allows for forgiveness of debt, otherwise those monies come back and we reinvest them into other projects, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so currently as it sits today, 35 of the 36 units are home restricted. And what is that period of restriction? How many years?
Yeah, so that was the period of the loan, so that was, I believe, it's 18 total years, because it was extended a few, I think it started off at 13. But now that that loan is matured, that we're looking at these properties being lost if they're not reinvested in, and that affordability not maintaining.
So there was a period of time and where the maturity is set right, basically set at the beginning of this year, so they've run through the period of restriction of
Right.
where those units have to be held affordable. Okay, so if they don't, the do nothing is those units could be turned to non-affordable, they could go market rate housing.
Essentially.
Okay, got it. And is the 20 million, so the 6 years is to allow them to build their financing stack of the estimated 200 or 20 million?
Correct.
And then they'd be reinvesting into all those projects to get them up to 30 years old, so.
That 6th grade timeline came from is so that their loan forgiveness from the city is just about complete. They just need to record it. And so then waiting for this loan forgiveness to go through, building the rest of their capital stack to be able to invest kind of that time. Things to occur.
If they did the reinvestment as is expected, is there a time period that the units continue to remain affordable? What is that?
Yeah, so 40 years is
Okay.
our restriction. The city also has 40 years, and then there's another 4% LIHTC situation that will line up and add an additional 40 years on top of that. So I just put 40 years in there as that's our restriction, but it should be 80+ years.
And LIHTC, low income housing tax
Okay,
credit.
yes.
Got that. Thank you.
Brittany, how does a restriction get placed from the county if we're forgiving the loan? Are we planning on getting another round of their capital needs? Or the debt forgiveness has a 40-year restriction, an ongoing 40-year restriction on it?
Yeah, so their regulatory agreement will be amended to include that additional language for the 40 years, and that will stay put. We're just forgiving the loan document itself, so that original document for the period of affordability will stay basically re-recorded or amended.
And it's 40 years starting from period of time they do their rehabilitation.
Yes, actually, I think we are starting it at the point of time of just forgiveness. And then 40 years from there. So I believe in the resolution it said the exact date, and I apologize, I don't think I wrote that down, but it should be that exact.
40 years would end on December 31st, 2065.
Exactly.
Very good investment.
So how much, have they indicated how much they plan on reinvesting into the property?
Yeah, so CJ Court specifically, Catherine Johnson Court would be approximately 6.2 million. I just talked to them yesterday, and that's kind of the rough estimate that they gave for that investment, and then 11.2 million into the El Estero property. I just like to note that El Estero, that is not our loan, but that is part of kind of this combined efforts that's gonna happen with these loan forgiveness.
So the debt service on this about $2,500 a month.
Yeah, I think it's
And
25.
so that's gonna support about a $3 million loan. So where's the revenue coming from for the rest of it?
Yeah, I know that as of right now, they have, I don't think they have a full kind of stack figured out. But between our two forgivenesses and loans and then private equity that they have. I know that they have part of it built. I can't speak to the rest of it as of right now, but I can definitely get you that information.
Thank you.
These are units that exist, so it's rehabilitating the existing units. It's not building from ground up.
Correct.
So about $172,000 per unit, just for perspective.
And it costs us significantly more to develop a new one. Also note, Catherine Johnson Court is located at 6321 East Fourth in Spokane Valley.
Cross Street is on that.
What's that?
Cross Street.
Gosh, I know it's behind that, behind the fire station there, as you get off, yeah. on that
Probably
point.
like-
So just up on that first kind of ledge there.
Okay.
Eastern Road. Davis, South Davis, David.
More questions? Great, appreciate y'all hearing me out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That.
Morning.
Morning, nice to see you again.
Nice to see. Thank you. We've got a couple of quick items for you.
Very good. And Julia Cole, our landscape architect project manager, will be presenting on the first one. This has been a good 2 years in the making, so I'm excited myself for this.
Morning, everyone. This first item is the amendment to the easement that we share with state parks at Plants Ferry. So we have a 40-year easement in place at Plants Ferry with state parks. And this really allows right now overflow parking. If you've been out there on a big game weekend tournament, you'll see that there's a lot of cars parked on this yellow area here. That parking overflow would remain in place, but this amendment is really just to expand the permitted uses to allow for the future expansion of an access road to Trent and then associated components of that potential access road. So stormwater, fencing, anything that's associated with that road. And then the possibility of expansion of the grass field number 12 there slightly onto the state parks property if we were ever to realize renovation of the full master plan. While none of the expanded items are part of what we're constructing now, this allows us to really realize the full master plan if and when we want to do that. And then there's just some slight other language adjustments in there, primarily for an inadvertent discovery plan for technology if anything were to be. All I have on that one.
Yeah, so it just amends the existing agreement that we have in place and allows for future expansion for the master plan, and we're very pleased to be bringing this before you. We started this process about 2 years ago, working through state parks. We've had several meetings and they've been very supportive. It's just a lengthy process, so we're very, very happy to be at this point and have this before you.
$2,000 one-time payment. for
Already been made, and I believe it's recognized as having been made. Is
Yeah, I
that
think
right?
we amended, in the amendment, it changes it to past tense, so that was just the original payment.
Oh, this goes back to the original.
Yes,
Okay, so nothing new.
yes, so no new cost associated.
Yes, it has been.
Good catch. Yes, yes. Love the eye for detail.
That can get used.
Yeah, oh, definitely. So we're excited, again, just to have this in place. So should we find funding at some point in the future, we're in a good position to implement that portion of the plan that would utilize their land. So we appreciate their support and again, working with us. It's been a bit of a road. There was a lot of studies and cultural resource examination and just a lot involved behind bringing this to you and we work through it.
Yeah, I should also mention that this has already gone in front of the State Parks Commission. And they've approved the staff basically finishing it up.
I guess we'll jump to our next item then. And Jonathan is going to speak to this item. I think we've got a brief presentation.
That's one.
Perfect.
All right. Good morning. So this briefing item has to do with Fish Lake, and this is not the first time I've talked to you all about Fish Lake, and it definitely won't be the last time. So the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office periodically reviews properties that have received funding for facility or acquisition funding. During their most recent review, they identified a compliance issue with the agreement we have with the RCO dating back to 1969. It has to do with the original Fish Lake property. Thankfully, also RCO has provided a relatively easy amendment to our agreement. So it's what I'm briefing you on is that amendment to that agreement. Next slide, please. So I'll give you a little brief background. I'll talk about the problem just really briefly and then the proposed solution. Like most of our regional parks, Fish Lake Park has been acquired and developed through multiple stages. In 1964, Fish Lake Park, initial Fish Lake Park acquisition was 50 acres of property that encompassed most of the lake and a lot of the shoreline of Fish Lake. That's delineated with the large dashed line there on the exhibit. In 1968, Fish Lake Park opened to the public, though it was limited to 150 people because they didn't have the appropriate restroom and changing facilities. So in 1969, they applied for 2 grants through the RCO. One was for acquisition of an additional piece of property, and that's the piece of property on the exhibit there that's just to the north of the large 50-acre acquisition. And then also for the development and enhancement of the already existing Fish Lake Park, which is delineated by this small dashed line there. It says 1969 RCO grant development area. So this these enhancements, they wrapped up and everything was completed in about 1971. Fish Lake opened the property or to the public. However, between 1971 and the late 80s, Fish Lake Park was closed sometimes for large periods of time because of rising water levels in the lake that still are somewhat unexplained and flooding that happened in that park development area. And so by 1991, the county again approached the RCO for grant funding for acquisition of the property that was at the time owned by the Myers family, but now is where what we consider to be Fish Lake Park is where the existing Fish Lake Park property is. Next slide, please. So now we're left with an agreement from 1969 with RCO, and we have received funding for park development, but there is no park development in that area. And so the RCO suggested that we simply amend the agreement to take recreation out of that agreement, and we will Yes, development out of that agreement. Recreation will stay in the agreement. That area will still be encumbered by recreation. It'll still be set aside and for recreation only. RTO thankfully considers this all an act of nature, nothing that the county could have done about it, so that's why they're willing to simply amend the agreement. So if the board approves, we will move forward with the approval of a resolution to execute this amendment. Staff has already reviewed this resolution and the amendment, as has the county prosecutor. And so if you all provide approval, we will bring the amendment to the October 21st legislative meeting for executing that amendment. And questions do you have? What clarifications can I make?
So the property owners around the lake, particularly the west side, what are they going to see?
What are they gonna see? Well, that's actually a good clarification. You mean in the developed area, the area that was developed?
Yeah, how will any of these actions impact either the use of Fish Lake or the property owners around Fish Lake?
Not at all. In fact, the original development of Fish Lake no longer exists. There's no development. So right now what they see is like cattails and kind of a wetland looking area. That's all going to stay in place. However, we still have the opportunity to maybe program some trails in there, or, you know, additional recreational uses for that property.
Okay, but there's no funding or plans to do that now.
There is no funding or plans to do it now.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay. Your help on that one, and then Julia will take our.
Yeah.
We'll be. We have a brief presentation for this one as well. Thank you, Rob.
All right, this one is a briefing on acceptance of the Department of Commerce grant for Plants Dairy. So as you're well aware, we were successful through the help of Marcus Riccelli in receiving or being awarded a grant in the amount of $970,000. And this item is before you today, consideration of accepting those grant funds. You may remember we signed an MOU with the contractor in advance of those funds coming in July, expanding the scope of the project. And so this is those funds coming in the door, and we would return with an amended scope for the contractor's scope of work if these were received and executed. Next slide. Just a quick refresher on the revised scope, showing 3 fields. This additional funding allows for us to achieve the 3 fields which are under construction now. In fact, I bet turf is going down on that 3rd field this week. And then the parking that was in the original scope as well. Next slide. And these funds help with, like I said, the 3rd field, lighting for the 3rd field, additional striping. So we were able to stripe that for both soccer and lacrosse. Automatic irrigation that helps cool those fields as well as clean them if there was something that we needed to wash out. Turf maintenance equipment, and then earthwork and design of the field as well. Next slide. So with your support, this item would go to legislative actually today. And we're looking for you to support Scott to authorize the signature on the agreement with the Department of Commerce.
It will be very helpful to keep the contractor working.
Yeah.
We appreciate that very much.
And as a reminder to the board, if you go back to that previous slide, Ron, the area in yellow is the project, part of the project that the funds that we have is going to be completing. That trail down or that road connection down below in Trent, we don't have funding for that. We've made the valley aware in the event that they see value to build that. We do have a design for it. We have an estimate of cost. So that's in the valley's hands to determine if that's something they want to and can fund. Right now, it'll just be that yellow section, that section that's highlighted in yellow.
How's it look?
It's really
Good.
good.
Yeah.
If you want a great view, drive up to Arborcrest and look down on it.
I think the first slide showed
There's a
the
couple
turf on
photos
the
and
first, yeah, right there, you
Yeah,
can see.
that's a
little bit.
view from the top there at Arborcrest, and then the first field of turf that went down about a week and a half ago. So we were working on the second last week.
You still have to come in and fill it all
Yeah.
in and all that, so it's
Yeah.
a pretty neat process. It's
So
exciting.
when will it be ready for use?
I think the target completion from the contractor is early December. I think we're still working on our agreement with the soccer association out there, so there's some fine tuning of that needs to happen, but should be done by the end of the year.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, we appreciate your help with that.
Just what you want to see, yes, but I got a lot of comments on that last.
Sure you did.
I'm just gonna grab a chair.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I am here along with Lieutenant Lewis Worth and Sergeant Justin White, who worked on our policy manual, along with Nathan from the prosecutor's office. So, and Lou's going to present basically some lexical updates.
Well, good morning. The reason why we're here is just to review a 2015 resolution that was approved when we adopted Lexipol. So the slides that you have in the PowerPoint kind of go over the history of that. I think Mr. French was the one of it at the time. So he has a little bit of this history. But what it does is just kind of reviews what Lexipol does. They pull in the most current information from federal, state law, best practices, and then put that into a CAN policy that we can adjust to our practices and then adopt those laws. Next slide. Then it covers everything in our organization, from the roles to operations, emergency management, and then again, food service. We can customize all those to our current practices, but then it also covers federal and state law and their statutes. So, next slide. Our current process right now, based off of this 2015 resolution, how the policies get implemented and adopted is it runs through Lexipol. We get it, we review it. We look at our current practices, update the policy. It goes from our sergeant who's in charge of that, or whoever is designated, comes up to the lieutenant, and then it goes to our command staff, which includes Chief Hooper. He approves it, and then it must come to the board to get approved before we can implement those policies and procedures. So essentially what we're looking to do is streamline that. And if you go back to the 2015 resolution, you'll see on the last line there is it just gets into that detention services director may issue a general order temporarily altering policies as a result of these negotiations, and will present the changes to the board for final approval. So We're not trying to take that away. We're just trying to streamline that a little more. And so it would be essentially the same process, but we would be able to implement those procedures that we've changed. And then we would come to the board quarterly, 3 to 4 months, and then brief you guys on the changes. We give you access to Lexipol so that you could look at those policies if you want to at your leisure. And then we could have a Q&A at that time if you had questions about some of the changes in the policies. As we get through this, currently we have 19 major policy updates that need to occur. And so it would take us coming to you guys, and you guys would have to approve those 19, read through them and make that decision. And so otherwise, doing it the way we're proposing, we would do that work and then send it through civil, legal, and they would make sure that everything works. And then we bring it to you guys for a briefing. Next slide. So these are kind of examples of the changes. It's hard to see, but that top one is a federal law change. And so it essentially shows the old policy, what it was, and then what the current changes should be. And then we can accept those in, in total, or we can adjust it for practices. And then the bottom one would be a best practice change, which is just some titles and things like that within the policies. Those are quick changes that, would be an easy change for us to make, and then you guys to review those. Next slide. So this would be the suggested change, update policies and procedures needed per Lexipol. Prosecutor's Office Civil Department would review those updates. We'd take them to our command staff for chief approval. We would implement the new changes to the procedures. And then that would be issued out to staff. And then we would have that meeting with the Board of County Commissioners quarterly to get your guys' input and make any changes that needed to happen or answer any questions that you guys have. You would have that access to Lexipol so you guys could review those. We could get them to you, weeks in advance, a month, or whatever's needed to review those. And then we'd also be open to any other changes that the board sees that may be a little more streamlined or efficient. So. And then, of course, no additional cost by doing this. We just have our, it would just be a change. So next slide. I think that's it. Oh, that is it. So
basically, since 2015, we haven't had any updates. So those are originally adopted after detention services separated from the sheriff's office in 13. The resolution was signed in 15. So it's a little confusing. It implies that the detention services director has the authority to approve policies, but they do have to come in front. 19 policies. We don't want the process to be overwhelming for the board or to delay us issuing policies is really the long and short what we're looking for. So.
First time, the policy we have now is 459 pages, and I read every page.
Okay.
This ought to be the expectation for the full board.
Okay.
We're assuming every board member.
Yeah,
Sure. Whatever you'd like. So. And some of the changes, it was very difficult to read on that slide, but some of the changes are very minor, just very language changes and things like that. So, I think one's high liability or other ones with potential risk we could get in front prior to putting the changes out. So.
I guess, civil looking at it, would you also have risk management, some that would have that effect? I mean, because part of it is talking about some of these are changes for liability purposes. So I just want to make sure that I don't know, what your thoughts are, just if there's changes that are happening for that purpose, and we make sure that, we're talking to risk management because they're probably looking at these policies too across the other counties.
It definitely is an interesting area in terms of that scope of this. One of the interesting factors with the way that this statute went and when the legislature decided to go with this route rather than standardized jail standards across the state is that it's intentionally pretty vague to the given jurisdiction to work out how to adopt policies and how those are reviewed and similar. So there's some point scenarios where some risk management evaluation may be useful. It's kind of working out what is best, what's worthwhile, what's most efficient for that too, while also being thorough, in part because we're dealing with an area where the legislature currently hasn't, although they keep talking about changing that. They have not chosen to adopt statewide jail standards. We're looking, of course, at what is the state law standards right now for what a jail is doing, but then also what are the federal courts advising on different issues, especially when we look at a new technology piece, new sort of tool, looking at what are other jurisdictions doing that are within the Ninth Circuit, or even in some of the other federal circuits and some of the different courts, to try to formulate what is the legally safest, what's the best practice within that realm too. So there's a lot of different factors that have to go into this process. The Lexipol procedure really helps make that work, and it makes it work really, quite a bit more efficiently, but it's also looking to everything else to put this together. So, thank you.
Can you just clarify that under the current process, when you're reading the last line of the current resolution? So does the jail or the detention services director currently have the authority to kind of temporarily issue a policy?
Yes, the way that the 2015 policy is written, and this is using, I think a few of us had to look at it a couple times to best understand it. Director issues a policy that takes effect immediately. The old policy, though, is not repealed until the new policy is adopted by the board. So it's kind of an interesting, issue. And I think that part of the, overall goal is to make sure you as the board are responsible for adopting the jail policies, make sure that it's done in a way that the board is comfortable with and is okay with. But also recognizing that sometimes the dynamic environment of a jail, different issues come up, new law comes out. We've even had issues where we'll get a new case that comes out with a ruling and we have to implement new policy the next day. We need to be able to move quickly, but then also make sure that everybody is updated and okay with those types of issues. So that's part of our goal and part of where we want to hear from you as the board. How can we do this to best get the boards okay with this, but also be able to operate efficiently for all of our sakes, and also make sure we're keeping in compliance with the laws.
So if the jail director already has the authority to issue policy.
Yeah.
Tomorrow,
Sure.
if something came up, what is the need for a change then?
The change is the issue policy, but then effectively they're stacking policy upon policy. As far as the way that is written as it stands right now, it's saying they can issue a new policy, but the old policy is still in effect. And so where do you call it? What is, because there is a new policy out there, but then an old policy is still in place. Eventually, the board has to approve it. And that could, there's, the question of where eventually and when do we get it so that those policies that are effectively temporary in the way that it's written now become permanent in the sense of.
So the jail director may not have the authority to repeal an old policy. So if there's a temporary one that conflicts with an old one, that's potentially confusing.
That's the way it's written right now. And that's where our goal is to get this to something a little bit more efficient. For instance, if the board does want to be reviewing every single policy, going through all 450-ish pages, which is what they did in 2013 when it created the jail separate from the sheriff's office, and then 2015 with the most current policy manual, the board authorized the whole thing. We have more regular updates than just going through the whole manual time and time again. That is not efficient for anyone's sake to just keep coming in every year with 450 pages. If the board wants to be going through the individual policies, one suggestion here is every few months we come, these are the policies that are going to be updated. If there's any that catch anyone's interest and you want to discuss a bit more, we can look at those and discuss, and then get the rest on, get everything on consent agenda. if the board wants to be even more hands-off and wants to delegate more authority, the board can make those decisions too. So ultimately, we're looking for everyone's guidance on how do you best want those policies to come through you while also maintaining efficiency to act quickly in emergencies.
So, and I appreciate touching base on this. This was during a period where we were transitioning the responsibility from the jail, from the sheriff over to the board. And so there was a whole new level of responsibility and accountability for the board that we didn't have to deal with before. We could always say, sheriff, it's your fault. And so there was a lot of attention given at the time to make sure that whatever the policies were, that the board supported them so that they could do their job and stuff. So I appreciate the idea of coming back and revisiting it, because a lot of things have occurred over the last, 7 years. So, but that's a little bit of history about why the board was so involved with this effort, and that's why it's now 459 pages.
You mentioned something about it. Something hadn't been updated since 2015. Is that the resolution or is that the policies?
A lot of the policies, correct.
Okay, so just want to confirm a couple things. Right now, you will obviously work with the civil team when you're doing policy updates. To the extent that there are some liability risk elements of that, you'd be working with our risk department, and to the extent that there's personnel related, you'd be working with our HR department. Just want to make sure all those things are interconnected for the.
Sure, and every policy goes through civil, and I think Mr. Gadd at risk, I think every policy going through him actually makes sense too. And then anything that's personnel related going through HR, I think we can do that. That's something we can put in place easily.
I'm not suggesting every policy. Dan probably doesn't want every policy to go through, but those that have a risk component. So I think just to address some of the questions by the board, if we've got good internal touch points on the relative disciplines that are best positioned to inform on those, I think that's really good. And then it sounds like the request is still to get board, give board updates. And I don't know how frequently these are done, if you update policies on a monthly basis, quarterly, annual, but you're asking for an opportunity to adopt the policies with a revised resolution and then come back to the board to give an overview of any policy changes that would have been implemented. Is that fair?
I would think no more than quarter. I don't think we would get to more than quarterly. A handful of quarter would be probably a reasonable amount for us to get to as well.
And just a second, because Josh wanted it.
So with the policy manual, keep referring to it as the Lexipol. So Lexipol is a company that produces these manuals or these policy procedures, correct?
Correct, yes.
So are the changes you're bringing forward, are they all changes that we as a county have decided are changed, or are they updates recommended by the Lexipol company as best practices as time has gone on?
Most are Lexipol brings them to our attention.
Okay.
Sometimes there's other laws, sometimes other things that Nathan or Civil has brought to our attention.
Okay.
State law changes, but most of them Lexipol brings them to our attention, and we have to go through and really just customize it for our facility, our command structure, or even facility differences with the two facilities, and then get in front of us, get it to Civil for approval. So they're mostly recommended by Civil, or from Lexipol.
From Lexipol. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Lexipol gives a nice template that, of what the best practices and procedures are, but sometimes there are unique areas for the jail based on programs that the jail may have based on particular issues, for instance, tablets and like messaging. You might need a very particularized policy on what the messaging is to authorize for to make that clear for all parties involved who may be using it. That might be something where we have to do a little bit more drafting on our part, because Lexipol may not have something specific to e-messaging on tablets. Or if there's some areas where, like, for instance, use of force, we have the state attorney general's model use of force policy, which is going to come from that particular source and then kind of work with that in conjunction. So there's a lot of different areas that go in, but Lexipol can help cover a substantial chunk of what the best practices and procedures are.
Thank you.
So is the request to basically delegate the board's authority to set policy period to the jail director, and then we basically get briefed to discuss it? We could make a change if we wanted to. Is that what you're asking? The default would be jail director sets policy. Board can then kind of periodically be updated.
I think that may be one of the most efficient, at least from the civil standpoint, that might be one of the more efficient ways to do this, to make sure the board is still involved in reviewing it, addressing issues or areas that come up that, the board may see with it, but also allowing for, us to just, keep updating things, because part of this is, for policy to be good, for there to minimize risk of liability and issues, you want to make sure that the policy is flexible as new law comes up, new issues come up, but then also get that board input there. So I think the request would be to have a policy where jail director, jail commander gets to update the policies once they've gone through review process between jail command, staff, civil, legal, risk management, HR is appropriate. It's adopted, and then the board gets to review on a regular basis and note any issues, agreement or disagreement. That would be that's kind of the recommendation. However, if the board has different perspectives, we're welcome to that. And that's part of what we want input on, so that we can get something finalized for everybody to.
Have you thought about any other ways of doing it, like putting a time limit on, like I'm thinking of a scenario where there's a update needed in a short period of time. One alternative would be to say there's a time period at which that decision is effective pending board approval, or changing our old resolution to say that this kind of temporary authority that the jail director has also includes the authority to temporarily repeal a previous policy that's in conflict with the new. It's not that I want to micromanage the jail, but it's a high liability area. So I'm just a little bit reluctant to just kind of have the board say, you get to do it without us kind of approving the policy, versus I'm just thinking out loud about that piece. I think that presenting new policies, and then having the board approve it as a package and having the chance to discuss anything would be consistent with what I think we typically do in other areas. So I'm just kind of thinking out loud about that.
How often do you want to see us is kind of, I think, part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what you mean. In the past, typically it's the sheriff that is in charge of detention services. So for most locations, so that's why goes to that authority. But we're the ones that have the authority now that are in charge of it. So yeah, I think it's just trying to find that balance of how do we let you do your job and make the decisions you need to make, but make us aware as kind of the of that. But I mean, because yeah, we're not gonna read all 400 pages. And you guys are getting all the updates as to what needs to happen and when. So I mean, I can just see where it's like, I would allow Chief Cooper to be making those decisions immediately. And then, even I think even on a 6-month basis, come back as to what changes have been made.
Short bullet point form, and if
Yeah.
anything grabs everybody's attention, provide it all ahead of time, provide all the actual policy, not the manual, but just the updated policies ahead of time to the board, and then anything you'd like to discuss, you have to break it down. So
Yeah.
however you'd like to do it, or present our existing changes, send them to you and call us in and we'll explain anything we.
Yeah, I mean, I'm. In delegating our authority, it's like we still need to be informed because we're ultimately responsible. So I mean, so that's the little push point, which again, sheriff typically is the one that happens with. We're just, I think more jails are coming under the commissioners though here now across the state. So this is becoming more. The sheriff doesn't want to be in charge of it. So I don't know. So I don't know what that looks like, but I see what you're saying and I agree.
There's like 18 or so of these that we get.
I think 19.
So are most of those fairly straightforward that you would plan to kind of do in a package, so to speak, or does every single one need a ton of in-depth discussion? I'm just trying to get a sense of, would you come and present, like, here's 10 that we did, or here's what we want to do? That are pretty simple.
Sergeant White, what the policies we've been working on.
Sergeant
Yeah.
White was assigned the summer, he did most of the updates.
Yeah, so the top big ones that we have outstanding right now that need updated are staff and inmate contact, reporting in custody deaths, mental health services, use of restraints, foreign nationals, diplomats. I think we can all agree those are probably some of the bigger ones. And just to clarify for Lexipol, they employ attorneys that specialize in each state that they issue policies in. So when we get updates from them, it is updates based on Washington state law and federal law. Majority of the updates we get are based on legal changes and law changes. So they do have best practices, and that's nationwide best practices. And then the other changes that we sometimes see are case law changes, or the mail policy, for one, is a lawsuit that the Spokane County went through. We had to change our mail policy based on that, and that's one of the ones the civil department handles that we don't even adopt Lexipol policy on based on that. So if that helps ease your mind, that their attorneys are based on Washington state law and updating those things.
So there's with the 19 or so policies here, and I anticipate there'd be one additional about kind of the policy updating process, to give a proposal on how that would look. There are some high risk-ish fields, especially in this round, just in terms of matters like the mail policy, where there might be a little bit more review to make sure everybody is comfortable with it. There's some of those, but then you get into areas like, for instance, radio procedure. That's probably not going to be as exciting for everybody here in terms, because that's going to be more in terms of internal operation than facility liability generally. So there's some where there may need to be some more where there may wish to be some more discussion. There may also be things that everybody reads through in advance and has no, not much questions or room for discussion.
The other thing too, a lot of the changes are grammatical changes. They catch a lot of their grammar errors, or they change from custody lieutenant to administrative lieutenant. And to Lexipol, that is an update. If they change one word, one comma, anything in there, it's an update. So it's not always a substantive update.
I think there's two ways that you guys could think about organizing this, is dividing it up with kind of operational day-to-day policy changes that you would designate to the chief. The other is more substantive, high risk, high liability, and those would have to come before the board. Alternatively, you could designate to the chief all policy updates and then put a sunset clause in it. So it automatically sunsets after 90 days if the board hasn't approved it. So that requires every policy update coming to for approval. That allows for the flexibility, but also keeps the board apprised of everything and lets you make a final decision.
The advantage of the sunset type clause one is everybody's gonna have a different view on a high risk area. What is or isn't high risk? And having just kind of that set time frame, it is gonna be a little bit more work. And so it's how much time on the sunset clause involved. But then if there's a policy where nobody sees an issue, that's very quick. Whereas there may be some with more discussion. So this may be a very quick review process. And then a little bit more time when an issue comes up, when there's a hot button topic. So that's the advantage on that realm.
I don't know if what the need to make a decision is. I might just ask for a week to think about that. There's certainly pros and cons to each. No question that in my mind that the chief should be able to react quickly. This is kind of what's the tie up to that. I'm just considering.
Would it be helpful for us to formulate some model policies on how the update policy may look that could be distributed for review and then, redlining discussion?
or share the 19 that we're already considering, share the 19, or most 19 recent with the board, just the 19 changes, and just look at the ones we're actually considering right now and just see what it looks like. Or all you could all review
You're
and
talking
then
about
we can.
the proposed policy on how to adopt policy.
Yeah, policy on how to adopt policy in addition.
Attorney.
Sweet. Along with the example policies that we have updated, I'll note that Lieutenant Lawrence Sergeant White have put a lot of time into going through these policies to get them or, line with where they should be. So that kind of gives some examples of the work that's going on and what we're going for. That could be a helpful tool to have while looking at the policy on updated policy. With examples of policy to guide how you're gonna update that policy.
Because we certainly, substantive changes, I think we'd want to see, but, grammatical or change in titles, that kind of thing, I don't need to be in the weeds on that. So,
I agree. It's gonna be hard to divide that line. There'll be
Yeah.
different opinions on that.
it's got it. Oh,
I was gonna say, I wouldn't mind having a few options on the policy, the set policy, just to think about the different choices there and maybe a very simple list of what the current topics are that you're looking at.
The bullet point list of what our existing policies are, share the whole 459 pages as well if you'd like.
You know, this is just a fun.
Just the
it's
90.
fine.
Sure.
Don, I may have slipped
Yes.
my mind on this one, but I don't recall this sort of topic of policy updates coming in front of the board, at least during my time here.
I don't think it has, it has not in my time since this, and I think it's been longer than that. I think it's been since 2015, as far as I can tell.
So I'm just gonna make a suggestion, observation that maybe we don't need to adjust the current resolution because it doesn't happen. It's one thing if it was happening on a regular basis. It sounds like this does not happen, and so maybe we're creating more work and discussion on this that's needed.
The only thing with that, I think, is we've left a policy manual that has not been kept up to date.
But how does this resolution preclude that from keeping it more up to date?
Well, what I would say is we just left it and we've not approved all those changes. And so that's what we did this summer. And so I guess what we're looking for is a process. How would you like to approve that 19 changes? Because it has been left and we haven't put anybody focusing.
so that's the current focus is the 19 changes that need to be approved.
Got it.
And then continue moving forward with changes. I'm sorry.
And those 19 that have been in place, they're all in place on a temporary basis, if you will, based on the resolution. But it could have been for 3 months, 6 months, 3 years.
Those 19, we have not done anything with.
Okay,
There was, I think, 7 that we have done some adjustments on. Originally, when we started this, we were in the 20s for adjustments. Lexipol also continues to issue updates basically on a monthly basis. As laws and things change like that. So it's a continual it's kind of more of a living document than it is a set document. Yeah.
That's what you'd like it to be now, because it's been a.
Well, that's how Lexipol views it, is as a living document.
And I would like to say, just because we haven't been doing it, doesn't mean we should be doing it in the future. We're trying to improve the process here.
And I wasn't suggesting that. I think I have better context now. I was thinking, well, there's been no updates since 2025 and now we just have 19. So we need to update those. So but it's not really the reality of what it is. Okay. I got it.
We had Sergeant White, we assigned for after the academy and 6 months of just working through policies. So I think he brought a lot of them to our attention.
7 is what I got through in 6 months.
Yes. Okay.
Very nice of you to do that. It's like going through my lunch.
It's just for the interest of clarity, bullet points of the 19 that we're considering, kind of just a bullet point description of those 19 and maybe some proposals for what we'd like as the policy on changing policy, I think is how we worded it. So, and then it's a week or 2 or however long it takes to review and we'll come back and.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Red letter.
Are there any other miscellaneous items that we need to address? covered them, so we're to
One pending and potential litigation, executive session item. Anticipate no final action at the end of it. Approximately 45 minutes. I'd like Matt Folsom, Scott Simmons, Josh Grote, Colin Charbonneau, Devin Kurta, Nathan McCorkle, Mike Sparver, Jeff Morris, and Ashley Cloud.
anyone not? Sorry. Okay. And then,
We'll have one closed session on labor negotiation that.
so it is 10:17. We will go into executive session for about approximately 45 minutes for the item just discussed. No action anticipated, so at the end of that executive session, we will adjourn for the morning, and then we will have a closed session after that. And then we'll see everybody back for 2 o'clock. Thank you.